This time of year is always super reflective and emotional for me in a good way. Well, since 2020. So if you've been following my page, you've seen probably a lot of posts, and you can probably tell that I am very reflective this week, and especially this weekend. Tomorrow will be the anniversary of me going through deliverance and being set free from many demons that were causing very, very severe mental illness. So during this time of year, I always spend a lot of time reflecting and just looking back at where God has brought me from and what he's doing in and through my life. And this week, I was really looking at, I don't know if it was this morning or yesterday, but really thinking about how when we give God our little bit, how he multiplies it and does what only he can do. He brought me to the story in John chapter 6, verses 1 through 14, and it's where he fed the 5,000, where Jesus fed the 5,000. So there was a group of 5,000 people, and all that they had to come up with, the disciples, they had a young boy there, and it says that what the young boy had was 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. That's all they had. And Jesus took that and he multiplied it and fed 5,000 people, over 5,000 people. And I've always looked at that story like, wow, like the Lord can multiply anything. But what he was really showing me recently was that when we give him everything we have, we may look at that and say, well, that's not very significant. I don't have a lot to give. I don't have a lot to offer the kingdom of God. I'm not very talented. I don't have much. Maybe it's money. I only have $1 to give to that fundraiser. I only have $1 to give to that church. Or maybe it's your testimony. Well, I don't have anything else in me but my testimony. That's all I have to offer other people and to offer the kingdom of God, is to tell people what God has done for me. Maybe it's a gift to sing, and you say, well, all I have is my voice. All I have is a song to offer him. Or it's the ability to teach. Well, all I have is the ability to teach. That's all I have. I have nothing else to offer. Because maybe you're looking at these people who are multi-talented, and they have money and they have all these giftings, and to yourself you're looking and saying, but I don't have that much to offer the kingdom of heaven. I don't have that much to offer God. And when he was showing me this story, I caught something that I never really had caught before. That young boy gave everything he had to Jesus. When he gave the bread, how many? He had 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. And he gave it to the Lord, and he put it in the hands of Jesus. What that boy had wasn't enough, right? Like it legit was not enough to feed all those people. There was nothing about that boy's food that was going to feed that crowd. It was not enough. But when he put it in the hands of Jesus, Jesus multiplied it, and it became more than enough, because they took up basket loads afterwards. So not only was it enough to feed them, it was more than enough. And Jesus does the same thing today, the same thing with us. When we give to him all that we have, it's not enough. It's not enough to reach other people. It's not enough to reach the multitude. It's not enough. It's not enough. But when we hand it to him, and we do it, or we say it, or we give it, maybe it's that $1 we're giving, whatever it is. When we give it to him and we release it and we put it in his hands, then he multiplies it. Now in this story, I know Jesus could have walked over to water and pulled out fish and said, I'm going to feed them this way. He could have just said, Lord, Father, send down fish and send down bread. And I have no doubt that it would have come from heaven, dropped on the ground. But he didn't do it that way. He took what the boy had, and he multiplied what the boy had. And I really believe that that's to show us that when we give our all, when we give what we have to him, it's an action, it's a doing. We have to give it to him. He didn't multiply it first. He took what the boy gave him and then he multiplied it. When we turn loose of those things and we give those things and we put them in his hand, then he makes them more than enough. Then he blesses it. He anoints it. He makes it reach who it needs to reach. He does what needs to be done with it. And I was thinking about Fullness of Joy Ministry and thinking back to the day that I got set free. I give my testimony a lot, and I can hardly remember the person I was. I can hardly remember who I used to be. And then I give my testimony and I go back to who I was, and it's like a stranger. There's a defining, clear moment of my before and after, of who I was and who I am. It was not progressive. It was, boom, this is who I was and this is who I am. Now, there were things in me that were progressively changed. I'm not saying that. Progressively dying to self, progressively crucifying my flesh, those things that I'm still walking out and still continue to do. But there was a defining moment of a death of who I was and a change. And after I went through deliverance, the Lord said, share your testimony. And I remember thinking, Lord, people already thought I was crazy. They're really going to think I'm crazy now. But I said, okay, I'll share my testimony. And it was hard because it was hard to be that transparent. But in the grand scheme of things, what did it cost me? What was that? That wasn't much, right? It took an hour of my time, or an hour and a half. I don't know. I used to be longer winded than I try to be nowadays. So maybe it was 2 hours. But it took 2 hours of my time. That's not much. That's not having to give much. I didn't have to leave my house. I didn't have to study. I didn't have to put any money on the line. All I did was push the live button on my computer, on my phone, and give my story. It wasn't much as far as costing me something. But when I put it in the hands of the Lord and I said, okay, Lord, five years later, when I look back on all that he has done, all that he birthed out of one testimony, I have given my testimony so many times since then. I have had people reach out to me from all over the world saying that it has given them hope. It's changed their lives, not me, him. It has nothing to do with me. This is not my boasting. This is him, what he did with one thing. With the people that I've met, the friendships I've made, the connections I've made in ministry, and books have been written. I think I have over 200 videos of teaching on YouTube. All of these things came out of one testimony, giving one thing. And I wonder, what would have happened if I said, oh Lord, I can't do that. That's too much. I don't think I can do that. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where this ministry would be today. But I know that God has been so faithful, and he's multiplied and multiplied and multiplied. He's done things that I could never do in myself. I wouldn't even have thought to have done them. It wouldn't even been on my mind to have done them. And he did it out of one testimony. Like, that's the part that blows my mind. And when he connects this to the story of feeding the 5,000, something that seems so small and so little, when we give it to him, he can do with it what only he can do with it. But we have to release those things. We have to give them to him. We have to step out. We have to do them. When he said, give your testimony, I had to put it in his hands by doing it. I couldn't hold on to it. It wasn't just write my testimony and hold on to it. It wasn't just keep it in the secrecy of your home and tell it to yourself. And so I want to encourage you, even if what God is telling you to let go of or release or do, don't look at it as, But that's not that much. Look at it as, when I put that in God's hands, who knows what he can do with that? Who knows where he can take that? Think about the little boy that gave the couple pieces of fish and a few pieces of bread. And Jesus multiplied it to feed over 5,000 people. What will he do with your fish and bread? What will he multiply? Who will he reach for his kingdom? Ask him, what is your fish and bread? Ask him what it is he wants you to offer up to him. Maybe you already know. Maybe you already know what it is. Whatever it is, I encourage you to give it to him. Release it and let him start multiplying it. Love you all. You'll probably hear from me more this weekend. I am super, super, super reflective this weekend, and I don't like the phrase in my emotions because I do not let my emotions lead my life anymore. So I'm not in my emotions in a bad way. I am just so incredibly humbled and grateful for the things that God has done in my life. You know, I see, and again, this isn't about me. This isn't about Fullness of Joy Ministry, but I see some of the things that I don't even have my hands on that have been birthed from Fullness of Joy Ministry. There are other ministries out there that are impacting lives that have flowed out of Fullness of Joy Ministry in some way or another, that have been touched by Fullness of Joy Ministry, either through going through deliverance or learning their identity in Christ, or encouragement or prayers. And I see that I don't have my hand in none of that because it has nothing to do with me. But I sit back and see the fruit of it and it growing and the impact that God is having. And it's almost like I got to be in the birthing room. You know, I don't know what it's like to be a midwife in the natural. I have no idea what that's like. I've never attended another birth besides birthing my son. Never been in the room with a baby being born. So I have no idea what it's like to be a midwife in the natural. But I feel like I know what it's like to be a midwife in the spiritual and to hold somebody's hand. Now, I had nothing to do in it at all. God did all of it. I was just there holding their hand. That's the only part I played in it. But to watch these things be birthed and to be front row center seeing it, and to see God calling things out of people, and to see people walk into their identity of Christ and to step into ministry that they've been called for, to see them start taking authority in their home and taking their homes back, taking their minds back, taking their lives back. Walking through that hand in hand with people. To be able to experience that and to trace that all the way back to when he spoke to me and said, give your testimony. I had no idea. No idea. I thought he was going to say, give your testimony, and that was going to be the beginning and the end of it. I thought, okay, God, I'll tell everybody what you did for me, and that will be it. And then I don't know what I thought I was going to go on and do with my life. I have no idea. I don't even remember thinking about that part of it. But I remember giving my testimony with zero expectation, thinking that that was the thing that he had called me to do. And then 5 years later, to see what all was birthed in me and in others out of that one thing, that one yes, that one act of obedience. If God can take one act of obedience that small, in the whole grand scheme of things would seem very insignificant. It wasn't, not what he did in me. I'm not talking about what he did in me, but I'm talking about like taking the time to do that. Just think what he could do with all of us saying, yes, Lord, yes, yes, yes. if we got out of our head and got out of looking at ourselves or what we think we can do or what we think we can't do, and we just started saying, yes, Lord, if we walked in boldness, think about the impact we would have for his kingdom. So I would encourage you. Ask him what he's looking for in you. What yes is he looking for in you? Like I always, I know January is the beginning of a new year. But for me, May every year is like the beginning of new life for me. It is like my new year. Because who I was died on May 24th. And I was a new creation from May 24th, 2020 forward. And so I'm going to be looking to the Lord of what does this next year from May to May look like? What fish, what bread am I holding that I need to release? What do I need to say yes to? What areas do I need to walk in boldness? And I want to encourage you to do the same. Ask him, is there anything that you're holding back? Is there anything that you've been too afraid to step out into? Is there anything that you're allowing fear to block you from doing what God has called you to do? And what are those things he's called you to do? Because it can seem small in the moment, but you don't know who you're ministering to. I heard that once and I thought that was so profound. What the minister said was, you may not be the one that preaches or shares or teaches thousands upon thousands, but the Lord may use you to minister to one person, and that one person may go reach 1 million people for the Lord. I mean, I think about that. What if one person in our life has a calling on their life to go reach 1 million people? Their calling is no greater than ours. I believe 100% that every single calling in the kingdom of heaven is equally as important as the other. So whatever you're called to, whatever God is stretching you in, growing you in, don't let fear steal it from you. Say yes and just jump in and do it. You don't have to. So many times I think we feel like, well, I have to be equipped. I have to do this. I have to do that. If God is calling you to it, he's equipped you for it. And he may not equip you until you step out in it, until you open your mouth, until you're right there, right in the moment, because he may be teaching you to walk by faith. So I just want to encourage you, do for the Lord. Give him your fish, give him your bread, and let him multiply it. Don't worry about the multiplication. That part doesn't matter. What matters is that you put what you have in his hand. I remember telling him from the get-go, Lord, if it only touches one life, if my testimony only touches one life, it's worth giving it. It's worth telling it. It's worth sharing it. It's worth showing who I was and the process of becoming who he is creating me to be. And I recorded a testimony podcast, I don't know, yesterday or the day before. And the lady, she had no idea that the Lord had said, or that I had prayed that the whole time to the Lord. I've prayed it a lot. Lord, if it only touches one person, it's worth it. Because it's never been about numbers. It's never been about like platforms and none of those things. It's always, and I not that I have not had the temptation to go there. I have had the temptation and the enemy saying, well, look at your numbers. They're not like this or that. No, in the name of Jesus. What always brings me back is remembering, if it touches one life, it is worth it. That is my anchor to keeping focused on God. If it touches one life, it's worth it. And so that's why I always come back to that. That is like my guiding post. One life, it's worth it. And after we recorded that, the testimony, she looked at me and she said, you know, I have to believe that with my listeners, that your testimony is going to touch at least one life and radically change it. And I was reminded right then, like, yes, Lord, he brought me full circle. Like, that's what I've always said since the first time. If it touches one life, it's worth it. And I think we have to go about life that way, because sometimes we get so focused on how many we can touch, what we can do, all of that. But it's the day-to-day, it's the in and outs. If we can touch just one life, and then after that life is touched, okay, Lord, just one more, just one more, just one more. That's the multiplication of heaven. That's a multiplication of the kingdom. And if we touch one life and we put that in the hands of the Lord, what he can do to multiply it. I was also talking, I did another podcast. I've done several this month, or it feels like I have. Maybe it's not been as many as I think. It's just felt like it because I've given my testimony a lot. And somehow the story of the woman with the issue of blood came up. And we were talking about how she knew if she could just touch the hem of the garment of Jesus, that she would be made whole. And the woman said something to me. Like I've always said that I identify with her so much because I had been to so many doctors. I'd spent thousands and thousands of dollars on natural doctors, mainstream medicine doctors, therapists, medications, because I had tons and tons of medical illnesses. So like the number of medications, surgeries, doctors, I feel like I had spent thousands upon, well, I didn't feel like it, I did. I spent thousands upon thousands. And she said that from my perspective, I know what it felt like to be that woman. So like when I read that story, I read it from the perspective of, oh, I know what it feels like to be her. And I never thought about that before, but I've always identified with her. I identify with her and Mary Magdalene, for sure. And the woman with the issue of blood, when she said that, she said, I want you to speak to our listeners about what that's like from that perspective. Because it's easy to read the stories, but then when you actually have lived it, what that feels like. And I talked about how we have to get to a place in our life where nothing else matters but being with him. That where we know he has the only answer. It's not the doctor. It's not the psychiatrist. It's not family. It's not friends. It's not this modality, that modality, for whatever we're looking for, whatever the answer is, not just physical health. It's not our job. It's not our spouse. That whatever we have need of only comes from him. And we have to get in his presence. Like it's not just enough to see him from across the way. Like I think about that woman. It wasn't enough for her to just have him walk by. She saw him, or I picture her seeing him. And knowing that she has to touch him. Even if it was just the hem of his garment, she had to touch him. And I wonder in our lives, how many times are we satisfied with sitting back in the crowd, eating our popcorn, and just watch him walk by? We see him, we know him, we may say, hey, hi. But we're not desperate for him. When I went through deliverance, I was desperate. There was a desperation in me because I knew that my body could not continue the way it was. I knew that if something didn't change, I probably wasn't going to make it much longer. I was already to the point where I went to bed at night not knowing if I was going to wake up the next morning. When we get to that place of desperation, and again, I'm not talking necessarily physical health, but that desperation of saying, he is the only thing that can change this. He is the only thing that I need. I have to get in his presence. It says that the woman pushed the crowd to the side and she went through to touch Jesus. She went through the crowd, maybe not pushed him aside, but she went through the crowd because it was crowded. And I think back then, women were not treated the way that we are now. If we walked into a crowd, maybe some men would maybe move out of the way. Back then, women were second-class citizens. It's not like it was today. And the boldness she had to say, I'm pushing through the crowd and I'm going to touch him. Because if I don't, I'm not going to be well. Like, I think she was decided in herself. Unless I touch him, my life's not changing. And I think sometimes now we need to be that desperate. I was that desperate. And God moved in a miraculous way. The same way that he moved in her life, he moved in my life. But I think we need to be at that place every single day of our lives where we are desperate for him, where we are desperate to be in his presence, where we are desperate and know that he is the only answer. He is the only way. He is the only way. Because I think as we experience things and life gets in the way, we can get really comfortable sitting on the sidelines just watching. But may we all have the desperation of that woman every single day of our life to say, I have to push past the crowd. And what is the crowd? What is that to us today? It's distractions. So what is distracting you and hindering you from being in his presence? What is stopping you from touching the hem of his garment? Whatever that is, push it away. Because there is nothing else that's going to fix you. There's nothing else that's going to change you and heal you and save you and give you the answer to the prayer that you've been seeking God for, aside from touching the hem of his garment. Touching him, being in his presence, being with him. You guys be blessed. I'm sure I'll have more to share. These are just some ramblings. Not ramblings. The Lord's already checking me for that. It's not ramblings. It's not. It is deep things that he has taught me and deep things that he has used to change me. So they're very special to me and very dear to me. Ramblings was not the right word. Sometimes I feel like I ramble is how I should have said it. This entire ministry has always been about sharing what God is doing in and through me. All the lessons that I teach are things that he's taught me for the most part, that I've walked through, that he's taught me. Being transparent and just sharing my life. And so it is all very special to me, and it is all very dear to my heart. And I think in all of it, in everything that he's walked me through, the bottom line is we need to be submitted to God. We need to live lives submitted to him. We need to be seekers of him and to be in his presence and to learn from him and to be guided by him. And we do that through his word and through prayer, through crucifying our flesh, through choosing his will over our will, doing the things that don't feel good, doing the uncomfortable things, doing the things that scare us, being bold for the kingdom of heaven. You guys be blessed. If you guys have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out to me. I love you all, and I'm sure I'll talk to you more this weekend.